Merrick's Litecoin shoes too, if you didn't see those. They're not Litecoin beneficial shoes, they're just shoes with the Litecoin logo on them, to be clear. Awesome, we are right on time. We're right on time. I appreciate the other half of you showing up during that session. That was good, getting a more full room. Appreciate y'all, I hope. I'm gonna talk a little louder for the people who just showed up, just to get that ringing in your ears, just used to it so it won't happen during the sessions. You can go ahead and get that migraine that you have worked out on my voice. So I'm just gonna talk like this once or twice, just so you can feel that, oh, I regret, and whatever the decisions you made last night that were terrible. So anyway, Vegas, baby. Who's having a good time? Yeah, you don't sound like it yet, but we're getting there. We're getting there. Lunch. Anybody have any recommendations for lunch? Steak and shake. Oof. No? Any more coffee? Okay, it's not a conversation, sir. It's just like shout out one thing. I appreciate you. All right, here we go. Joel Valenzuela is the business development and marketing for Dash. Is that right? Joel Valenzuela works in business development and marketing for Dash, a cryptocurrency user and advocate since 2013. He's been living entirely on crypto since 2015, and he lives under a bridge in a, I'm kidding, obviously not. He is a mover for the Free State Project and creates content for Digital Cash Network, and he's going to introduce his panel to you. Please welcome Joel Valenzuela and friends. All right. Yep, anyone, yeah, just anyone. They're all set. Y'all are all set. Thank y'all.
All right, everyone. Is this thing on? There we go. That kind of works. Yeah. This is the one technology I can't figure out is audio. So, hey, everyone. Welcome. Get that caffeine in your veins wherever it is. It's going to be a meaty one. I'm joined by a fantastic panel of people here. I'm going to let them introduce themselves one by one. So, Seth, why don't you go first? Tell us who you are and what you do in the privacy space.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Joel. So I am Seth for Privacy. I'm the VP at Cake Wallet, and we've been pushing the boundaries of privacy in Bitcoin and in Litecoin, especially lately. We launched MWEB on mobile at the end of last year, and really, really loving the ability to actually bring actionable privacy tech to the Litecoin community. So that's been a ton of fun. Yeah.
I am Justin Berman. I've been working on Monero full-time as a software developer for in the realm of 3 years. And I work across the Monero ecosystem. I'm making it more private, secure, and improving the user experience. So that's me.
I'm David Burkett, the MWEB developer, and some other stuff. There's really not much to say, but yeah, I write code.
I'm Dr. Kapil Amarasinghe. I'm one of the lead advisors to BasicSwapDex, which is one of the world's most private, secure, and decentralized atomic swap dexes, and also one of the only atomic swap dexes in the world that's capable of supporting coins, swaps of coins, atomic swaps of coins such as Litecoin, MWEB, Monero, Zcash, etc.
Yeah, well, awesome. Well, I have a few kind of talking points to go through if you want, but feel free at any point if something spicy, you want to keep riffing off of something, you know, I'm not your dad. So we'll start with this thing. First one, the big, it should be the big duh thing, but there's a lot of nuance to it, obviously, is does privacy even matter? Why does it matter? Is it like a nice thing to have? Like I just rather not people snoop on me, but, you know, could take it or leave it? Or is it essential? Who wants to go first with this one?
Yeah, I can go and jump on in. I think it is absolutely essential. I know that's probably going to be the prevailing narrative here, so maybe not too much debate. But
you got a rebel up here.
Yeah, I know. It is a panel on privacy, but I think the reason why I view it as so essential is when we talk about something being freedom money. If we talk about Litecoin being something that actually enables people to have freedom financially and in the things they're actually able to do with their money, it relies on two things: self-custody, which I think is pretty well understood as a necessity for money to be freedom money. But I think the one that's often forgotten is privacy, where even if you have self-custody, if you know that you're constantly being surveilled, you're going to self-censor. You're going to use it in different ways than you would if you felt like you were able to spend freely without surveillance. And then you're also going to be more liable to censorship. Hopefully not at like the layer 1 miner level, but potentially at the merchant level. They may censor you based on the things you've done in the past with your Litecoin. So being able to have privacy is the second pillar alongside self-custody for money actually being freedom money.
Yeah, we've seen a lot recently too of people being kidnapped, tortured for just because it's known that they have, lots of money, lots of crypto, and just being able to transact without like broadcasting your net worth everywhere you go. When you go buy a cup of coffee and advertise you have a ton of money, like you never know who's watching, who sees what. It's scary, and it's actually like the number of reports about these kind of kidnappings and stuff. It's getting out of control. I like follow law if you can see all of them. Like a developer I used to work with, he ended up being like a crazy person recently. So one of the Grin developers, he ended up like kidnapping someone else, and just like a week or so ago. So it's like it's all over. It's getting pretty scary at this point. But there's a number of reasons we need privacy, but that's such an obvious one in crypto recently. Is just seeing like all the bad things that happen when you start advertising your net worth, your wealth every time you transact.
Nobody wants to use money that is telling everybody how much they own when you use it. You don't want you pay a friend in Venmo or you go to some store, you don't want to reveal how much you own, what's in your account, your past transactions. And on the same side, neither does any merchant. Any reasonable merchant is not going to want to have all of their customer records revealed, how much they're doing in sales. All that information is generally, even for normal people, not even on the ideological bent, which I also agree with, but from a normal practical perspective, businesses don't want to use money that's revealing so much information just through normal usage. So I think it's pretty essential from that perspective as well.
Yeah, it's a huge shift from what people expect. Like that's one of the problems with cryptocurrency I think a lot of people didn't realize at first was things like Bitcoin, things like Litecoin are actually worse for privacy in many scenarios than using your debit card or than using pretty much any fiat payment method. So it is one of those things where I think we're starting to finally catch up with the realization that this thing could be worse, but also can be better when we have the right tools actually available to use, and hopefully those two things will get in sync.
Yeah, I actually just want to add, we've talked a lot about the importance of privacy from the viewpoint of security. Those two things are inextricably linked. But the other thing I would like to say is I think privacy is the ultimate safeguard for freedom of speech. The most secure thought is a private thought. If you're having a conversation, just two people in a room, and it's far away from everyone else, if you trust each other, you can share your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, what you believe absolutely freely. Now, a third person comes into the room. They don't necessarily know who you are. They may have their own prejudgments. You may suddenly feel compelled to self-censor. So that's what the fundamental premise of privacy is the ability to facilitate freedom of thought, freedom of expression, which allows for diversity of ideas, which then facilitates, ironically and counterintuitively, the free flow of information. That diversity and ecosystem of novelty and creativity is fundamentally supported and underpinned by privacy. And if we don't have that diversity of thought, then what we're building ultimately is a society of self-censoring echo chambers. And when you have that, that's when society as a whole becomes vulnerable to the next big unknown thing, because it's become so used to self-censoring that it no longer knows how to adapt, because it can't express itself, because it can't think freely.
I now feel a little underqualified for this panel, so.
I think so.
Should I just
Well,
bow out now, or do you want me to just sit here?
I think we let you on because of the shirt.
Oh,
You have the
it's the
best.
shirt,
No
yeah.
offense to anyone else, you got the best shirt on the on there. I have that shirt too, by the way. So now we get to the more, I guess, probably the most contentious one, oddly enough, is the all or nothing question. Is privacy an all or nothing kind of thing? Because you do hear a lot of obviously in issues like this that people really care about that are important, there's a lot of disagreement on like what's the exact best approach and things like that. And someone's like, well, that's no good. You need this one, and you know, your shitcoin here. There's all that stuff. So generally speaking, is privacy an all or nothing thing? Should you just get perfect, like, you know, military grade privacy, like avoiding nation states, everything, super anon, showing up to Bitcoin conferences with a ski mask on, like all that stuff? Or if you can't achieve that, just give up and like use something super transparent? Where is the line? Like, is it privacy kind of like an all or nothing type thing, or do you benefit from smaller increases of privacy? Who wants to go on this one?
I definitely think that smaller iterations are the practical approach. Like, the ideal is that we would have that perfect privacy, but a lot of the dangers we see, at least around the net worth, you know, how much crypto you have, that kind of thing. Simple things like confidential transactions are a small change we can make. Start hiding the amounts in your wallet. Like, that's a huge improvement, a huge safety, security factor there. So yeah, I definitely think the all or nothing, like, it's very in the cloud thinking. We need a way to get there. I would love for that to be the end goal, but in the real world, like, there's a lot of trade-offs involved.
Yeah, I think something that's very, very under-discussed when it comes to privacy, and something I wish I had learned about far, far sooner in my personal privacy journey, is the idea of threat modeling. Don't just assume that your threat model is like every nation state out there is out to get you personally, and go way too hardcore with how you approach personal privacy or financial privacy. And if you take a step back and you actually threat model and figure out, like, who am I trying to hide what information from, and how far am I willing to go to hide that information, you'll come up with a much more practical set of things that are requirements for you and things that are just nice to haves for you. And I think that absolutely applies here, where, like, yes, it would be great to have perfect privacy, but for the average individual, there's a balance. If the pursuit of privacy for you is actually inhibiting your quality of life and actually reducing your freedom in what you can actually do, in the social engagements you can actually be a part of, in the relationships you can have, that's actually a negative. Like, privacy is just the means to an end. You don't want privacy just for privacy's sake. You want privacy to increase human freedom and to increase human flourishing. So if you're destroying human flourishing specifically because you're trying too hard to have this perfect privacy, it's actually detrimental. So it's absolutely a personal thing. No one can tell you what level of privacy you need. Only you know what information you have, what things about yourself you want to have that choice over, and can actually make steps towards privacy around.
I would also say it's not necessarily always all or nothing in that incremental privacy. I do think that incremental privacy improvements are beneficial. Like, for example, confidential transactions in Litecoin gets rid of the vector of revealing how much that you own when you use it by default. So that's a good step in the right direction towards something that's practically useful, beneficial in everyday life even for normal people. And I applaud that. On the other hand, I do think it's also important to shoot for improving privacy completely and keep that North Star as the direction to head towards, because even from a practical perspective, there are scenarios where not having that will actually impact people's day-to-day. And I can give a direct example. So with both, I'd say Litecoin and Monero to some extent have this. I'd say Monero is is a bit better on this front for sure. But here's one direct example. If I am using Monero or Litecoin and I go to a merchant and I'm spending it consistently with this merchant who I've onboarded, I can see potentially when they consolidate all of that Monero or Litecoin that I've sent them, and how they're using it by default, they consolidate it, and they consolidate it with other transactions, and I could potentially see other information about them. Now with Monero, there are stronger protections from this with Monero's current usage of what are called ring signatures that I won't fully get into. But there are some edge case scenarios where they can't provide perfect protection there. And so it's something that no merchant should really have to be thinking about, like, is there a circumstance where I could be revealing information to people I don't want to be revealing? It's just an edge case that people shouldn't have to think through, and I think that that's important to shoot for improving that privacy as a directional goal for making the money more useful for people's day-to-day.
Yeah, I just want to say, I don't think it can ever be an all or nothing thing. And as you said, it's very much a process. I think back to I became aware of Bitcoin in 2011, and at that time it was marketed as anonymous cash. You just be like, these wallets are just random strings of letters and numbers. And this was before chain analysis came along. So at that time, practically and functionally, yeah, it was anonymous cash. But then chain analysis came along, and suddenly you can start linking wallets to identities. You could start going and looking at exchanges and going, these wallets with these random numbers and letters, it's that person probably. And that process has evolved over time. And then we got the evolution of technologies like confidential transactions, ring CT, zero knowledge proofs. So that's an evolving process. It's an arms race in some way. So I don't think you can ever have truly all privacy, because it's, I think, even quantum cryptography and quantum computing looking ahead, but you got to have as much as you want, and you got to have as much as you need, and that's to meet the needs, your daily needs, and some of us have greater needs for that than others, and I accept that. I think that's great.
I think just to piggyback off one thing you pointed out there too, like those transactions made in 2011 were anonymous at the time, but the unfortunate side effect of blockchains is, especially things on layer 1, they live forever. So those things that were anonymous in 2011 can now quite easily be de-anonymized by chain surveillance and all the information that they have available to them today. So that is like a thing that we do need to be constantly thinking about. And again, that's something that contributes to self-censorship. Like if you know that maybe I feel private right now, but who knows how private this is going to be in the future. That's why in cryptocurrency specifically, I think you do kind of have to go a little bit further than you feel like you necessarily need today, because you do need to be thinking in the long term. But you do also always have to continue to weigh that with your threat model right now. But that's why I feel like I definitely echo Justin's sentiment of like you should push as far as you can without sacrificing human flourishing, without sacrificing too much user experience where it's just painful.
Yeah, I know when like developing MWEB, that was a big concern too, is, not just is this private today, like quantum cryptography, as you mentioned, like the commitments that we use will at some point be broken by quantum computing if it goes the way we think. And so when that happens, we had to really think about how we design the commitments such that we don't retroactively like lose all the privacy there. So we have mechanisms for switching over in the future. When that happens, it ends up with like a larger proof size. But we had to be very careful not to like leak all the past amounts and everything when it does happen. It's a big concern that like people early on working on Bitcoin and stuff didn't really think about like what happens when, some people did, but most did not. So, yeah.
Yeah, and so when talking about this, I like this concept of MVP, or minimum viable privacy. Like, how much is the least you kind of need? Obviously, with a big spectrum of how personal it can be about like what purposes you need, but like at the very, super no privacy is you have like a username or whatever that's attached to all your transactions. Everyone knows it's you, whatever. Then there's like the Bitcoin style pseudonymity where, everyone can kind of figure out who that is, but until they link it to an identity, there's like, it's not zero. And then you get down the list, and then you get to like, everything shielded by default, everything with, over Tor, whatever else at the other end of the spectrum. What's kind of the minimum that we should really be driving for? That's the minimum viable privacy, do you think?
I think just really quickly to answer, I think for me, it depends on the person. But I think when I'm looking at it, like especially as I'm looking to onboard people who are new to the concept of privacy, the minimum viable level of privacy to me is that you can have some protection for when you spend, what is someone able to see about what you've done in the past with your funds and how much money do you have. That's the main level of privacy that I think is absolutely necessary. Without that, I don't think it's something that people should be using generally. And Bitcoin by default, Litecoin by default, without MWEB, I don't think meet that minimum viable privacy level for me, and that's why things like MWEB are so vital, because it really does. It's not perfect privacy. It's really a scaling technology that provides good privacy by the nature of how it works, but confidential amounts specifically are really key there. So that's like the minimum viable level to me. I should be able to spend without a common person being able to easily see the history of what I've done and how much I own.
And another thing, yeah, like without, you should be able to spend without the common person seeing, but also I think it should be done in a way that like the common person using it doesn't also have to think about that. It should just be a default, like there should not be some extra thought into, oh, which UTXOs am I going to choose when I spend this? I think having it private enough that that normal people don't have to think through all of the technical details when they make a transaction, of whether this is private and safe enough, is what we really need as the MVP there.
I actually just want to follow from that. I 100% agree with you. I think we need to make it, as a developer community, we need to be making these tools and building them in such a way that they're so accessible and so convenient that the people who are using them, they're just using them without even realizing they're getting the benefits of those privacy. We don't need to tell them it's private. They should just be using it, and they should just be safe and secure in the knowledge that it is safe and secure. That's what banking traditionally was supposed to do before they started doing all the BS they do now.
I agree with all that. TLDR, just really easy to use without revealing how much you own and your past transactions, I'd say. That's the minimum.
Yeah, we're coming up close to the end here. If we have any hard cutoff or time, someone yell at me and throw a tomato at me or something. But also, I checked the clock. It's shill o'clock, my favorite time of the day. What cool stuff in the privacy world are you guys individually working on that you'd like to just mention, or that you're not working on, but someone else is, and you think, I just think that's really awesome, I want to highlight it?
Yeah, I'll just jump in and be really quick, but we've been really working as hard as we can on shipping the best privacy tech across multiple cryptocurrencies at Cake Wallet. Obviously, MWEB we shipped in the fall, and that's been really fantastic to use, fantastic to work with the Litecoin community on that, and is something where we want it to be the default for people. Like, that's the long-term vision. It's not right now within Cake Wallet, but it's enabled for anyone who wants to use it, and very, very simple and straightforward. And on the Bitcoin side, we've been pushing privacy as well with silent payments, which is a new address type that provides better privacy and better user experience, first and foremost, as well as PayJoin, which is a privacy-preserving way that you can send money to someone, work together to build that transaction, to hide the true sender and hide the amount. So there's really cool technology all throughout the space. MWEB specifically has been really fun. It was one of the first projects I got to work on after joining the Cake team. So, yeah.
So I'm working on an upgrade to Monero called Full Chain Membership Proofs ++, or FCMP++ for short. And I've been working on it for about a year now with others involved too. Shout out to Luke Kaya Benerve. So the idea behind it is, so currently Monero uses what are called ring signatures to provide sender privacy. So how it works is, if I receive Monero on a Tuesday, and then tomorrow I go and spend that Monero that I received, my transaction will have a ring on the input side. So I'll be spending that one Monero. That one Monero will be part of this ring, and that ring will be composed of 16 total what are called Monero outputs. So my one Monero output, my Monero that I received on Tuesday, will be a member among 15 other decoy Monero that other people have received in the past. And so that presents some challenges. There are certain edge cases and issues with ring signatures and providing really strong privacy in all circumstances. And so full chain membership proofs would say, instead of this one of 16, I'm spending a transaction that's one of all of the Monero that have ever been created since Monero started, which is now in the above 150 million Monero outputs. And so that's what I've been working on and continue to work on now.
And I've been following that closely, and I love it. It's awesome. And I've been working. I've worked a little bit on CoinSwap, which for MWEB, which would kind of move towards a more decoy style, similar to what Monero has today, slightly differently. But that's what we've been doing on the MWEB side for privacy. I'd like to some point have by default every transaction, at least core wallet, submitting to like a service that's anonymous. We don't leak anything to the service, but then kind of mixes your transactions before revealing them to the network.
I totally mean to interrupt. I'm sorry. I mean to interrupt. I'm sorry. I'm just checking this clock to make sure it still says 0. I mean to interrupt. I'm sorry about that. I'm just checking this clock to make sure it does in fact say 0 and has for quite a while now.
I think we were supposed to
think
get
those are
30
eights.
minutes though, so I think it was a mistake on the clock
Yeah, they
earlier.
look like 8s
I don't
from
follow
here.
directions. It's
I
just
think
well
that
known.
y'all could either leave now or have your morning ruined by me embarrassing you. It's your choice.
Oh, look,
It's
it's
like,
get
that's
off the
fine.
stage o'clock.
Rebecca, I work for you. We're done. This time is over, right? Yeah. Y'all can stay up here. Y'all can just stay up here for the next one
These
if
are
you
nice
want.
chairs.
Should I stay up here? What do you think? How do I look?
Matthew Moore is going to be doing a panel. If you're on that panel, you can stay up here. Dr. Kapil didn't get to share what he was doing, but he's awesome from yesterday. And like just everything he says in his accent makes me feel like he's telling the truth. So he's great. But it is time, and I'm the guy they paid to tell y'all that. So y'all need to head it on down.
Check out BasicSwapDex.
Thank y'all.
Yeah. Great job, though. Great job. Great job, everybody.